77th lesson. Revision and notes. No recording for this lesson.
'78th lesson. Don't worry.
We have seen many expressions and words already. And perhaps you are worried by some of the unusual ones, like they began to read, or studying is easy.
But if you read a lesson every day, you will come to know these words and idioms and will be able to use them naturally.
You already know enough English to survive in England, and you know a little about the country.
All this with just one lesson a day.
But you must continue reading and writing. And do not worry about making mistakes. You make mistakes in your own language too.
You probably want to speak fluently now, after only 11 weeks. But you should remember the saying,
You must learn to walk before you can run.
'79th lesson.
Have you seen that new film?
You mean Disaster? Yes, I saw it last week.
Have you read Animal Farm?
Yes, I read it when I was at school.
Have you heard the joke about...
Yes, I heard it 10 years ago.
When we are talking about a definite event in the past, we use the simple past tense.
But when we are referring to the past in general, we use have or has with the past participle.
You use this with words such as ever, before, already, and just.
For example, I have read this book already. Or, he has never seen the snow.
We say, she has already written 5 novels. But we must say, she wrote a novel last year, or she read the book last night.
Am I the first man you have ever loved? He said.
Of course, she replied. Why do men always ask the same question?
'80th lesson.
John saw his neighbour smoking a pipe.
He took his own pipe out of his pocket and said,
Have you got a match?
Yes, here you are.
Oh dear, said John. I've left my tobacco at home.
In that case, said his neighbour, give me back my match.
An actor saw himself on film for the first time.
Yes, said the critic. Now you see what we have to suffer.
Excuse me, sir. I want to marry your daughter.
Have you seen my wife, young man?
Yes, sir. And I still want to marry your daughter.
A Rolls-Royce stopped in front of Harrods, and a lady in a fur coat and diamond necklace got out.
A tramp ran up to her and said, Please, lady, I haven't eaten for a week.
Well, you will have to force yourself, was the reply.
'81st lesson. A little about England.
Have you seen a map of England before?
You must have noticed the number of large towns and cities.
England is less centralised than France. Cities like Manchester and Bristol have an important cultural life of their own.
A city is larger than a town and usually has a cathedral.
Birmingham, Nottingham, Leicester and Southampton are all cities, and Guildford, Warwick and Gloucester are towns.
There is a large and important difference between the north and the south of the country. A difference in the people and a difference in the accent.
You are learning to speak with a southern accent.
England is divided into counties, of which there are about 40.
Cornwall, the southern tip of England, is very wild and beautiful.
In the north, Yorkshire is the largest county.
Kent is called the Garden of England.
'82nd lesson.
Read this lesson as usual, and when you have finished it, answer the questions.
What is the difference between a city and a town?
Where would you find a cathedral?
Is England as centralised as France?
Are there any differences between the north and south of England?
Which accent are you learning?
Which county is called the Garden of England?
In which part of the country is Cornwall?
Have you ever been to England?
I want you all to write an essay, said the teacher, Miss Smith, to her class, about what you would do if you won a fortune.
Everybody started writing except Willie, who looked out of the window.
At the end of the lesson, the teacher collected the essays and saw that Willie had written nothing.
But you've done nothing, Willie.
That's what I'd do if I won a fortune. Nothing.
'83rd lesson. Shopping.
Oh, I haven't done the shopping yet. I'd better go now, or it'll be too late. Let's see. We need some meat. I'll get some chops for tonight and a joint of beef. I can put that in the freezer. Then vegetables. I'll buy some cabbage, some peas and some rice. We've already got beetroot and lettuce. I'll buy some flour and make a Yorkshire pudding to eat with the roast beef on Sunday. What else do we need? Some toilet paper and some bleach and some sweets for the kids. I think that's all. I can get everything at the supermarket.
John, may I take the car?
Yes. Do you want a hand?
Oh, if you're not doing anything, that would be lovely.
Let me watch the end of this program.
All right, I'll take the car out of the garage and fetch the shopping bags.
I won't be a minute, but I've been waiting to see this program for a week.
'84th lesson. Revision and notes. No recording for this lesson.
'85th lesson. 2 Sundays.
David and Joan decided to go for a picnic in Richmond.
On Sundays, David has a lie-in and Joan brings him breakfast in bed.
This Sunday, David got up at 11 o'clock and after shaving and washing went downstairs.
Joan was preparing the picnic basket.
She put in cold meat, hard-boiled eggs, some cold sausages and a lettuce.
She added a loaf of bread, some butter, and the knives and forks.
Meanwhile, David got the car out of the garage.
They put the basket in the boot and set off for Bushy Park.
On the way, David stopped to buy some wine.
Bushy Park is a huge park on the outskirts of London.
When they arrived, they found a quiet place and sat down on a rug to eat their lunch.
Pass me some chicken, please, and some salt as well.
"Oh dear," said Joan. "I think I've forgotten the salt."
Idiot, said David. But seeing she was upset, he said, "Never mind. Let's have a glass of wine." He took the bottle out of the basket, then said, "Oh dear, I've forgotten the corkscrew."
86th lesson.
David's parents spent a traditional English Sunday.
They got up early and went to church.
When they came back, Mrs. Wilson put the joint in the oven, while Mr. Wilson took the Sunday paper and sat down to read.
Just before lunch, he poured 2 glasses of sherry, and they both drank.
Mrs. Wilson served the food, and they sat down to eat.
After lunch, which consisted of roast beef, potatoes and Brussels sprouts and fruit, they both did the washing up.
When everything was put away, Mrs. Wilson went into the garden, and Mr. Wilson sat in front of the television.
He was intending to watch a play, but he was full, and everything was so peaceful that he dozed.
Later on, Mrs. Wilson came in from the garden and made some tea.
In the evening, Mr. Wilson did the crossword, while Mrs. Wilson did some knitting.